The power and audio routing of the GoXLR. The control and flexibility of the Elgato Stream Deck combined into one all-powerful device. That sounds like the dream, right? Well, AVerMedia sought to achieve that dream and deliver the best of both devices to streamers. The truth is, they have established some really compelling features and possibilities here, but they're going to need to keep working on it in order to achieve the full potential. Like myself and this YouTube channel, days and days of work are going to have to be poured into the software just to make users ever so slightly happier. As slight as it may be, that could also be a deal breaker in whether or not people purchase it or subscribe to this YouTube channel. I'm EposVox, the Stream Professor, and this is the AVerMedia Live Streamer NEXUS, a high-quality 6-track audio mixer and control surface combined together. During my original GoXLR review, I had viewers hoping that TC Helicon team would eventually let us adapt the sample pad buttons as macro keys to control streams or other programs akin to a Stream Deck, but that never ended up happening. This might be the next best thing. Not even the next best thing, maybe just a better thing. In terms of audio, the NEXUS is effectively a slot-in replacement for the GoXLR. Literally, in my testing here, I have just moved the exact same cable routing from the back of the GoXLR unit into the back of the NEXUS unit, with it sitting in front of my GoXLR. Instead of motorized sliders, however, you get knobs to control the volume levels and mute devices, with LEDs in a ring around the knob to indicate the level. Let's talk about the physical build for a second. In some way, the build of this thing has really impressed me, but in others, I'm pretty frustrated. The case is a hard plastic, which feels nice and solid, and is not matte plastic, so it won't be a fingerprint magnet like the GoXLR. The knobs feel nice and tactile and clicky. By default, the NEXUS is lifted a bit, off at at an angle, but then it comes with a removable magnetic booster seat to give it a bit of a better angle. Just make sure you buckle it in when you're driving in the car. This is better than having to ship a separate $40 stand, but I would still prefer a lot more height and verticality to it as I can achieve with the GoXLR stand. The buttons and knobs are lit with RGB LEDs, and there's an RGB LED ring running around the interface's perimeter, too, which is nice, but not too distracting. However, you can just disable it if you're one of those anti-RGB people, the anti-fun squad. Around the back is where I'm scratching my head, though. There's parity with the GoXLR's I/O, with an XLR/1/4 inch combo jack, 3.5mm line in and out jacks, 3.5mm headphone jack, and SPDIF optical audio in, DC power, and a built-in power switch. The combo jack is a nice touch over the GoXLR, and they include a 1/4 inch to 3.5mm adapter in the box in case you wish to use a 3.5mm microphone, such as from a gaming headset. The problem here is that all of the ports are inset about an inch from the back of the device. I guess this is done in an attempt to give it a more clean look to the back of the device, hiding the jacks of the cables themselves. But honestly, that's not worth it to me, and it completely removes the possibility of using right-angle cables. That and the XLR port being upside down for some reason. I use XLR cables with right-angle ends with my interfaces to help them, more cleanly route away from my desk, and that is impossible with this device. So I had to use a little extender cable. Just a really disappointing decision, in my opinion. It's an audio interface. People know cables run out the back of it. At least the ports aren't on the front. Imagine if all of your wall outlets were actually inset into the wall box and those obnoxious power cables that just shoot down at an angle never worked in there. There's not a sample pad section nor a voice effects section on the NEXUS. Instead, you're presented with a 5-inch IPS LCD screen and 4 large soft buttons. This is the Stream Deck side, and it has some incredible potential if they play their cards right. The screen is IPS, which means it has decent, not perfect, but decent viewing angles, way better than the GoXLR's little LCDs above the sliders. However, there's a giant bezel around the screen and the obvious effect of a screen sitting below the glass or plastic layer, which feels very dated. It would be much more pleasant if the screen went to the edges of the box for it, or was just wide enough to get rid of the buttons. The screen is effectively a Stream Deck. Using the NEXUS app, you can add various controls to the NEXUS audio routing. Profile switching, device muting, soundboard playback, so you can play up, use it as a soundboard. even a full dashboard quickly previewing all of your audio levels in case your knobs break. I'm not quite sure about that one. The available features very closely resemble the original launch builds of the Elgato Stream Deck software. Controls for the Nexus itself, as I said, and then basic OS level controls such as website opening, app or file launching, hotkeys without the manual assigning input and extended function key support they later added to the Stream Deck, multimedia controls, and text sending. You have super basic control over AVerMedia's Rec Central streaming and recording software, as well as super basic control over OBS and Streamlabs OBS via WebSockets. You can drag any of these options onto a virtual button assigned on a 5x4 grid to be displayed on the screen, with 5 possible pages of macros. There's screen space for more page tabs or indicators on the screen itself, so I see no reason to artificially limit page counts or not add folders by nesting as the Stream Deck did, but this is an early product, IMO. So this is neat on its own, but what's really cool is that these control buttons do not have to be the same size. There are different sized buttons based on the tool you are using. 2x2 for YouTube or Twitch viewer count displays, 2x4 for showing your Twitch chat on the screen directly, which is incredible. And then the mixer dashboard is 5x3, but again, I'm not sure what the use of that one is. Maybe it's just a demo. Since this is just a big touchscreen rather than a physical set of buttons like the Stream Deck, you can end up with any kind of interface here, as far as I can tell. Bigger buttons, system stats displays, sliders, video playback. The possibilities are endless theoretically, but unfortunately they end rather quickly with the currently available options. This is just launch software, and they can certainly add more later, but you should never buy a product based on the idea of added features later. You should be purchasing based on what's available now, or else you're gonna get burned or disappointed one day. In my opinion, they have to build an open API for anyone to be able to develop and distribute plugins for this in order for it to be sustainable and worthwhile, just like the Stream Deck did. Again, these are features that Elgato had to add after launch, but it's the competition to the Nexus, and it has it now, so that's what the Nexus is going up against now. You can change the icons for the buttons, and GIF support is included too, though apparently you have to make sure that you make them the correct aspect ratio, which appears to be 4x3 rather than 1x1. The bigger buttons have the potential to be live tile-like functionality if developed. Currently, you can't resize them either, which is silly. My Twitch follower account does not need to take up 4 whole buttons. That's just silly, especially since the Stream Deck just puts it on one tiny button. Why not let me change that? Dynamically resize it. The other controls on here are weird. I know cost may have been a factor, but I would have much rather just had a wider screen on this thing than these 4 soft buttons. They are the same as the macro buttons on the touchscreen itself, only you can't see what they are. So these are useful for static controls that you don't change often, like mic muting or profile switching. Also, the knobs come with the labels printed on the case itself and cannot be reassigned. This limitation extends to other issues I have with setting this up. Pressing the knob in mutes the selected device on the currently selected mix, but you can't change this behavior. Also, you can't have separate LED colors for the separate audio mixes, and switching between them is actually pretty slow in my opinion. You should be able to set it up so that you can see at a glance based on the lighting that shows up, whether you're looking at the creator mix or the audience mix, based on the lights. It should be instant feedback. I should know what's going on, and currently you cannot. Speaking of audio mixes, yes, unlike the GoXLR or the Rode NT Mini USB's new software, the Live Streamer NEXUS has 2 sub-mixes available, the creator mix and the audience mix. This is pretty self-explanatory. One is for your ears as the creator, the other is for your stream. Both mixes can be added as audio devices to OBS individually, as well as the chat mic device, akin to the GoXLR. You actually get the choice in software to have your chat mic, the one you use for voice chat for like Discord or in-game voice chat or whatever, whether or not it has the mic effects applied or not, which is kind of neat. Unfortunately, you cannot add the other hardware inputs, such as the optical spit-off connector or the line in, as individual devices to OBS, which is an issue for those who want more control over their recordings and audio balance. There's a virtual audio device for your game sound specifically, and that is accessible individually in OBS. However, the Nexus can run at 24-bit 48 kHz or 24-bit 96 kHz frequency sampling. 96 kHz is great for recording, I guess, but you generally want to leave it at 48 kHz for streaming compatibility. You also get the option to send either the creator mix or the audience mix to the line out jack. Unfortunately, the software for all of this is honestly, it's a mess. By default, it doesn't seem to scale well with Windows for high DPI displays, so I had to override the scaling settings to even make it usable for me at 4K. The options and menus are just genuinely all over the place. It's not intuitive at all. You have very little control over the LED lighting, which again is something the GoXLR launched with but has since fixed, and it can't be set based on profile, as I mentioned before, and there's no routing table. Yeah, you have basically no control over the actual routing happening here at all. That's not very Mixer-like. The GoXLR set up the near perfect template with a full routing table for every device and input and output. And it's like the AVerMedia team never even looked at it. You only have the choice of 2 submixes for your line out, the headphone output is restricted to the creator mix, and you can't manually exclude devices from either mix without just muting them entirely, which causes additional problems. While this seems innocuous at first, the main example of this being a problem is the issue I immediately run into with my personal setup. I have studio monitor speakers on my desk. These devices never provide an extra output for speakers for some bizarre reason, so I use the line out to run a mix to my speakers. Of course, having an active mic with speakers on right next to it that listens to the mic creates undesirable results and brain melting, deafening even. On the GoXLR, I can just exclude my mic output from that line out jack and be good to go. On the Nexus, however, I can only choose the creator mix for line out or the audience mix. And then I choose the creator mix, which means I can mute my microphone to the creator mix to keep it in the stream but not in my speakers, but now I can't monitor it. Muting the mic to the creator mix also mutes it to the chat mic device for some reason. Come on now. So now I can't voice chat without having it come through my speakers. And I can't hear it myself without it coming through my speakers, which the headphones and the line out are different routing, which is why that matters. Actually, ironically, you do have a macro pad button to mute the mic to your headphones for monitoring. So the routing capabilities are possible, they just didn't put it together well. Every action in changing settings in the software is sluggish and unresponsive, and I just really don't like the software. Also, the Twitch follower widget just kept telling me I had 3.4 million followers on Twitch for a while. I have no clue where I got that from, but it was a nice ego boost, but obviously not realistic. And the YouTube authentication was broken for me as well. Where does it keep getting these numbers from? I pulled up the phone because it was blank, and as soon as I hit record, it's no longer blank, but it's not... What is this? Hello? 16 million? It's just like making up numbers at this point. I'm pretty sure touching it literally doesn't trigger anything because it's not an interactive button. Also, there's no animation when you switch pages. That's terrible. I honestly don't think I processed that before. That's really jarring. And frankly, I'd rather the screen be bigger and there be hardware buttons for page switching here. This is useless. 4.7 million. Where does it get these numbers? There's weirdly no Twitch subscriber count, and not having any alerts or activity feed widget was a huge missed opportunity here. That would add a lot of value to myself personally. Having a page that is just like Twitch chat and then recent events on Twitch where it has your recent follows and all that, or even Stream Deck recent events, would be huge. Setting up your microphone in the Nexus is fairly similar to the GoXLR, but the UI is a little confusing. You have an overall mic level slider and a gain slider. Only the gain seems to go from 0 to 10 decibels. That's not how this works. You get to choose whether you have an XLR dynamic mic, XLR condenser mic, which gives you 48 volts of phantom power, or a 1/4 inch jack mic, such as a headset mic with the adapter. Then you get a basic vocal processing setup with a noise gate, an 8-band equalizer, and a compressor. The controls here are super limited and basic, and if you're experienced with this stuff, you may actually have an easier time just setting up VSTs to get the sound that you want in your streaming software rather than using these controls, because The EQ just doesn't feel right, but it's great that they're here and applied to the chat mic as well if you want for your real-time processing. They also loop in added effects here, echo and reverb. This is a bizarre decision because they're just always applied to the mic with no means of turning them off easily. There's not like a button to disable those effects for the macros or anything like that. This could be a cute, quick effect to use as a joke like with the GoXLR's voice effects, but instead you just have to commit to it. I don't get this choice at all. So how are the preamps though? This is a little weird. As mentioned, you don't have just a raw gain control as you do with, well, virtually any other interface. It seems to apply a preset amount of gain to which you can boost up to 10 decibels on top of, and otherwise you just manage the levels. AVerMedia's specifications don't say anything about who makes the preamps or what kind of gain it provides, only that it has a dynamic response of 114 decibels. I tested it with AVerMedia's new 330 live streamer mic here, but also an assortment of other XLR mics for the mic comparison. And yeah, it's weird. It seems to have enough gain to mostly power beefy mics like my gain-hungry Electro Voice RE20, okay? But there's hiss on every microphone I record with it, including AVerMedia's own mic. There's also a complete mismatch between the mic levels represented in the Nexus app versus OBS or your recording software in the end. It appears that regardless of where the mic is at gain-wise before, a limiter or some sort of additional level is applied to mostly normalize it for your stream sound. This could be pretty helpful and is probably quite newbie friendly, and there's a lot of people who will probably have an easier time with this, but with no way to control it, it's nothing short of frustrating, and trying to balance the levels between the different things is almost useless. If you use background music or game sound in your stream, the hiss will mostly be masked, but it's always there, always following you, like the shadow of the audio gear you actually wanted to buy, looming over you, shaking its head in disappointment. If you want to improve your audio for your stream and your presentation of it, today's sponsor Skillshare has more than a dozen courses on voiceover and voice acting. Skillshare is a great online learning community where you can take the next step in your creative journey. Want to learn productivity tips, photography, animation, or maybe product management so you can make a product just like this? Skillshare has courses that will fit your skill level and your schedule. YouTube's own Marquez Brownlee, or MKBHD, even has a course on running an awesome YouTube channel. You should go watch it so you can make a better YouTube channel than mine. The first 1,000 people to sign up with my link in the video description will get a free trial to Skillshare's premium membership. Go check it out. It's pretty neat. I learn a lot from there all the time. As far as the microphone I'm using for this video, this is the AVerMedia Live Streamer Mic 330, a dynamic mic, and you'll have to check the link in the description for my review of this one. So is the Live Streamer NEXUS worth $350? This is honestly tough for me. Overall, I'm in the camp of absolutely yes, 100%. You're getting the basics of a $450 GoXLR and a $150 Stream Deck combined together, and that value per dollar is pretty incredible. It's $100 more than the GoXLR Mini, with the Stream Deck functionality and makes that worth it anyway, but the NEXUS also includes proper 48 volts for phantom power for condenser mics, while the GoXLR Mini only includes 24 volts for some reason, which can cause problems, and some mics will require a separate phantom power supply, so then you're spending another $20. That being said, if you're not in a hurry, I might just wait a little bit longer. I'd consider the Live Streamer NEXUS a good beta or early access product. The bones and the value proposition are all there. The core concept and idea, great. And if you're not yet a power user, you'll probably be fine, but they have a lot of work to do. This is a product that will have to grow with you as a streamer a bit to really truly be worth the value. And that's assuming they support it long term and actually make the required updates, which again, you should not purchase a product under the assumption like that will happen. It's tough. If this were 2017, competing with the Stream Deck at launch, I'd be over the moon, but it's not. It's competing with the Stream Deck and the GoXLR in their 2021 states, and that's a much bigger scale to compete on. Also, they just need to completely overhaul how the mic setup section works in the gain situation. That has got to go. That hiss has got to go. Just like I've got to get out of this YouTube video. They say if you make a YouTube video that's long enough, you'll be trapped in it forever until a false content ID claim takes you out, and then that's game over. No respawning. Product links will be in the description below as always. Do you think the value of a Stream Deck and audio mixer combined together is a worthwhile investment? Chat with us on Discord at discord.gg/EposVox and let us know what you think. Hit the like button and get subscribed. I'll see you in the next video.